Hi, my name is Shamir Mohammed, and I am the founding editor and creator of The Maati. The Maati is an illustrated novel, and it's an upcoming travel web magazine that showcases the story of the Maati, who were a mysterious nation of nomads that have disappeared. And there's a young journalist who sets out on a global quest to discover their origins. So that is really exciting, and it's upcoming. And the best part about this is that I actually traveled to all the countries that the story takes place in. So the first book takes place in 12 global cities, perhaps 13, because I'm actually about to go and write the book for the next 2 months and then release it, publish it. So I recently got back from one of my more extensive trips in which I went to go and discover the story of the book. And I was traveling through Paris, France, Marrakesh, Morocco, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, Accra, Ghana, and Cape Town, South Africa. It was a trip that took 3 months, and luckily I had a successful Kickstarter a few months ago last summer, and I had a blast traveling by myself through all these countries. I had a lot of adventures and misadventures, a lot of ratchet moments. But one of the biggest questions I got while I was on the road, but then also when I got back, was how I was able to travel by myself for 3 months. And, a lot of people while I was traveling called me extremely brave. Some people called me crazy. I think mostly because I'm a woman. And then, of course, some people were asking how it was to be a person of color, to travel by myself. So first things first, I'll say that one of the first things I've learned doing solo travel was that I need to go with the flow. There were many times on this last adventure that I had no idea where I was staying before I got to certain places. When I was in Paris, France, luckily I'd left 4 days before the Paris attacks happened, and luckily all of my friends that I know were good. Unfortunately, I do have friends who lost friends. But even then, there was a lot of just kind of like what's going to happen and all that kind of stuff. And one of the best things I've learned about myself is that I have the resolve to just stay calm and just keep going and figure out what to do next. So I think that if you're considering a trip by yourself, especially one that's an extended trip, there's a lot of planning that everyone wants to do, and there's a lot of planning that people, like to have. But some of it you cannot plan. Some of it is just going to be like spur of the moment, you figure it out, all that kind of stuff. And so I would always recommend that people try to solo travel at least once, even if it's just for a short trip, because the lessons that you learn about yourself are just invaluable. And then also, you can't learn it any other way, and you can't learn it with anyone else at all. And another thing I picked up while I was traveling, I am such a stickler for, not being a tourist and trying to be a traveler and just, trying to get into the local authentic scenes and all that kind of stuff. Because that's what I love. I've lived overseas before. I used to live in Paris. I've traveled a lot through different places, and I always, seem to have an amazing time when I hung out with people who were actually from that place and when I learned a lot about that place. But during the last trip I just went on, like for example, when I got to Morocco, I knew one person in Morocco and they were not in Marrakesh. So the experiences that I wanted to have, I couldn't just kind of manifest the first day. I actually needed to go and do some touristy things in order to kind of get the lay of the land, to canvas the city, to find my bearings. And then once I started to get into the flow of things in Marrakesh, and then also in other places that I traveled to, in Morocco, all of a sudden, I started to have these amazing experiences that I totally didn't anticipate. So I would think that when you're traveling by yourself and traveling in general, it's less about trying to seek out authentic experiences and more trying to be an authentic person. Because I think people can recognize that. And then, you know, who knows, maybe you'll get invited to a 1-year-old's birthday party like I did, which was so awesome. And also really long. They party really hard in Morocco, and I wasn't ready for it. Neither was the 1-year-old. He was asleep. So another thing about, and then also when I was in the desert, for example, I went on a desert tour in Morocco, which is one of the most touristy things you can do, period. I met tourists from all over the place. I met really, really sweet people from Germany, I have amazing homies now from Mexico, from Australia, all these different places. And at the time I was like, oh, this is so touristy, like, ugh. But I had an amazing time, and we were able to go through places and actually converse with people. And, the best part about being a solo traveler was when it came time to camp out in the desert, everybody else was kind of booed up and, in couples, or they had come with their friends or something like that. I was a solo traveler, so the guides who were kind of guiding us to our camp in the desert were super cool with me. We exchanged WhatsApp. They gave me my own little tour of the desert. It was safe. It sounds crazy because it sounds like I just kind of okay, fine. Luckily, it was safe and everything was fine, because I definitely wandered off with some random people I didn't know in the desert. But I wouldn't have been able to do it as easily, maybe, depending on who I was with. So me being by myself was so awesome because I was able to learn a few words in Berber, and then also, looked at the stars, hung out with the camels a little bit too. And when everyone woke up in the morning, they discussed what they did the night before. And I was the only one who had really gotten really around the desert at all and experienced other things beyond what the traditional tour was offering. So if you're going to Morocco, definitely do a desert tour. And then definitely just get the lay of the land and let people know what's up. Being a woman traveling by myself can be tricky. It can be such a tricky thing, and I'll tell you why. I love being a woman. I love traveling by myself. I also love being a woman of color, because depending on where I'm traveling to, I can kind of blend in and do my own thing in ways that other people probably cannot. But at the same time, having to put up boundaries for different people that you're meeting can be very difficult if you're a woman, because some people just don't care. You have to be very cognizant of what you drink and the content level of the alcohol if you decide to. You should be aware of where you're staying and the security level of where you're staying. So when I did Airbnb, for example, in Morocco, I was completely cool. In Ethiopia, I stayed with a family that I knew, and I felt very safe. In Ghana, I rented a room in a flat, very secure. And then in Cape Town, I rented a room in a house that 2 women let out to different young professionals. All safe. Earlier trip that I did, in one location, I stayed with friends of friends, and everything was fine. And I had actually thought, everything would be cool. And unfortunately, I did have an experience once where someone tried to take advantage of me. And luckily, they weren't able to, and things were fine. But it was in the place I was staying, and I thought I was secure, and I thought it was cool. But what I had to learn was that, at all times, I really just need to be aware of my surroundings and who's around me, especially if it's somebody who shows up in a place I'm staying at who I may not know. Or even people that I do know, because other thing about traveling by yourself is it really reveals who people are for real. you know, maybe you have a homie from back in whatever city you're from, and you guys are really tight, and then you guys decide to go off to Paris together, and then you realize that your friend actually loves sticking to an itinerary, and they get very anxious, and you're more go with the flow. Or maybe you like itineraries, and you just like to be able to hit off everything on your list, and your friend is just kind of like, I don't know what to do. Like, let's just go to a cafe. And you're like, actually, I want to go to the Louvre. You should just be aware of who people are. Be aware that you're going to learn who they are if you don't know already. And then also just be comfortable with having a plan B. So a good friend of mine recently told me that she just always travels with a plan B. And she's just like, these are the things I want to do. This is how I travel. This is how it's going to be. And so she's able to stick to what she came on that trip for, no matter how it goes with the people that she's traveling with. And I thought that was great, because sometimes I show up on a trip and I'm like, it's going to be amazing. And then, things happen. And sometimes you just don't mesh that well with who it is that you're traveling with. But you have to remember why you're there. And you have to remember, what it is that you want to, try to experience, or, at least try to see while you're traveling. So being a woman helps with that sometimes, because people, a lot of people worldwide, no matter the country, some people are dicks to women. Let's just be real. And some people are dicks to young people. Some people can be really... can be assholes to young people. And some people didn't take me seriously because I'm young. And then also some people didn't take me seriously because I'm a woman. And some people didn't take me seriously because I come from the States. So you can just brush those people off. It doesn't matter. But a lot of people are really nice to you if you're a woman. A lot of people didn't mind the fact that I was from the States. And a lot of people thought it was adorable that I look really young for my age, because I look a lot younger than I actually am, and I won't tell you how old I am. But depending on who you meet and where you are and all that kind of stuff, being a woman, for example, can get you into really cool spaces. People, want to help most of the time. And then also, people are sometimes more courteous to you if you're a woman. So when I was taking public transportation in Ethiopia, it became a thing of at least trying to get me a seat on the train or something if someone saw that there was one available. Not always, but sometimes. But I would also say that one of the bigger challenges I faced when traveling by myself was, especially because it was an extended trip, was trying to figure out what to do when I landed in a space that I had never been in. So when I was in Morocco, I was like, what do I do? Of course, I'd read travel guides, and of course, I read tons of websites and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to, again, going back to a previous point, I wanted to seek out authentic experiences and all that kind of stuff. But what I ended up doing was going to touristy places, and then I also just figured out what my own flow was. I'm a type of traveler sometimes where I don't necessarily need an itinerary day by day, hour by hour. What I have is an extended itinerary of the trip, and so I make sure that certain sites I want to see or certain things that I want to do, I do them over the course of the trip, but I also allow room for whatever spontaneous stuff happens. So, for example, I went to the Bahia Palace in Marrakesh, and on my way back from the palace, I met up with some Senegalese dudes, and they showed me some back alley Senegalese restaurant. Again, safe. I was safe about it. But it was a really amazing experience that I had, amazing conversations that I had as well, that I may not have had as easily if I had just been, more hour by hour, this is what I'm going to do. So I really appreciate the way that I travel. I'm getting more comfortable knowing how I travel, and so that's really helped me to inform how much time to spend in a place, what I want to do, and then also who I'm able to meet and all that kind of stuff. And Airbnb can really be your friend too, because the hosts that I had in Morocco especially were so nice. They were so amazing and so sweet. And they helped me to have a lot of different experiences as well. And also, the last tip I would say, if you're planning a trip by yourself, is to use your network, because it can be so valuable. You never know who you know until you just get out there to everybody who you can still send a message to on Facebook, who you guys are still cool. But no matter who you know, you could have friends literally in every country. When I went to Cuba, I've never been to Cuba in my life. I never knew I had contacts there or any sort of connection in Cuba. I thought I was just going to show up and, I don't know, hopefully meet people, but I didn't know. But luckily, before I left, my best friend put me in contact with her mentor, who goes to Havana all the time, and then she put me in touch with all these people, including this amazing couple that I met when I was there, and now we're like family. I just got an email from them the other day. I'm an auntie, apparently. So, and I also was able to stay with them when things got a little bit rough with the person I was traveling with, because that also does happen. But I had no idea I had connections in Cuba. It was such an amazing trip. So awesome. And then best part was I got local prices all over Havana. I didn't have to worry about my budget as much either, because I just didn't speak, because I don't speak a lick of Spanish, and I just didn't speak at all. And luckily my new friends were able to give me a little tour, and it wasn't as crazy in cost as it would have been if I'd been by myself and also had to go to a place and just speak English. So those are some tips for solo travel. There are so many more. If I didn't touch on the ones that you might have a question on, definitely let me know, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. In an upcoming video, I'll be talking about budgeting, because that was fun. My whole trip to all these countries, 5 countries, for all the airfare cost less than $1,900, which is real. So it's completely doable. It's a lot of fun. It can be a bit lonely on the road, but there's so many ways to battle that too. So if you stay in touch with friends and family at home, it's so important. I'm not gonna lie, I loved having my iPhone because FaceTime is amazing. It's free. T-Mobile was great because in most of the countries I went to, I could actually use data and I could use data and texting for free, which was awesome. And then also, social media was cool because I mean, of course, people brag about traveling on Instagram and stuff, but it also is nice to kind of stay connected with people that you do know when you're nomadic, because it can be rough out there on the road sometimes, or it can be exciting and you want to share it. And so look out for more videos coming. Next one will be on budgeting. And I look forward to seeing you in the new place I'm going to, because I'll be writing this book for 2 months in a new location. I'm currently in Washington, D.C., but I leave in 2 days. So let me know, hit me up, and please stay tuned for the Ma'ati. Thanks. Bye.